at this table?
I don't know.
You better not even put your feet on
What?
Can we talk
Can
about
you
it?
hear me, Pat?
the table.
Huh?
Can you hear me? Oh, I was like, okay, maybe I need to use it.
Do we need to,
Serious.
if you're gonna record?
We're gonna pretend we forgot.
Too late for that.
Oh. Okay, so there are a couple announcements. September 11th, John Studebaker will be with us. He teaches people how to develop a godly vision for their lives. And then giving was $4.50. Right. Do you need me to use the mic?
No. Drop the mic.
Can you hear me better now, Pat?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll use the mic. Okay, so, I gotta get my notes. Okay, we are gonna be in Matthew 14, and we're gonna do 22 through 33. So 22, start with Matthew 14:22. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat was already a considerable distance from the land. Buffeted by the waves because of the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it is you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." Okay, so I have several things I take from this section of the Bible with talking about Jesus walking on water, Peter walking on water. Peter does the impossible. He was commanded by Jesus to come, and Peter took a big leap of faith and left the boat. So in verse 29, it says, "Come," which is a command. So Jesus commanded Peter to come. Peter leaves the boat when he knows that it is Jesus on the water and not a ghost, and for a little while he walks on the water. But then things change. Peter took his eyes off Jesus and focused on the storm. When Peter got out of the boat, he was focused on Jesus, on the source of his power. So he was focusing on Jesus. It was calm. He was calm. Then Peter shifted his focus from the source of his power to the problems that surrounded him, and then began to sink. We will sink when we get distracted from Jesus, our source of power. And distraction, to me, can come into two forms, the obvious and the subtle. Peter gets distracted by the obvious stuff. The thunder's booming, the lightning cracks, the wind's whipping, and the waves are pounding. There's a storm going on around Peter. It's easy to see why he gets distracted. He's afraid. Just a few minutes ago, he was rowing in a boat to no avail. Now he is exposed in the middle of the storm. We get scared by things that look like they will overtake us, and we turn from Jesus, the source of our power and peace. Second, we can get distracted by the subtle things in our life. The problem is we get too busy for Jesus. There's a saying I read that says, if the devil cannot make you bad, then he will make you busy. We do not need to get busy doing good things. We need to get busy doing Christ things. So I can get busy myself doing good things, whether it's, doing things for the kids, doing things for my husband, doing things for work. But is it really what Christ wants me to do? Is it really the Christ things? Am I focusing on what Christ wants me to do? Am I focusing on the busy work that Christ wants me to complete? In Luke 9:51, we read, when the days were coming to a close for him to be taken up, he was determined to journey to Jerusalem. Jesus knew that he must go to the cross. It was his life mission. He could have healed more people if he had not died at 33. He could have preached, taught, and converted many more people if he had delayed the cross 5 or even 10 years. Those are all good things. They were not his purpose, though. Jesus maintained a single focus, the cross. He would not be distracted by the obvious problems, Pharisees, scribes, and opposition, nor would he be deterred by subtle issues, healing, teaching, and preaching, which were all good things, but it wasn't his mission. We must never allow the problems of this world to distract us from the source of our power. We must always be careful to not become so busy that we stray from the purpose Christ has in our lives. So one question I have is, look for Jesus and keep looking to Jesus. Although a storm surrounded him, Peter looked to Jesus. The only problem was that he stopped looking at Jesus. The principle is clear. Especially when life is a tremendous storm, look and walk towards Jesus, even in the middle of your storm. This will allow you to get through the storm faster because you're not standing still. So my question is, what does looking and walking to Jesus look like for you? And when Jesus commands you, obey him. Jesus told Peter to come to him, which again, like I said, was a command, on the water. Even though it made no sense, Peter did what Jesus said. This what obedience looks like, doing what Jesus says. Question 2, is there any area in your life that you are not obeying the Lord? And then faith is simply taking the next step. Peter took one step to get out of the boat and onto the water. Peter was doing just fine when he was focused on the next step and got into trouble when he lost sight of his next step. What next step has Jesus asked you to take? When the storms of life come, how long will you wait till you call on Jesus? Don't we often try to think our way out of problems and search for others who can get us out of our problems before we look to Jesus? I know I'm guilty of that. Why is Jesus not our first refuge in difficult times? I know sometimes my first response is going right to Eric. When I need to first go to Christ and then to my husband. We forget as Christians Jesus is the Christ, which means he is our Savior. Peter did not want a Jesus when he was sinking. He wanted the Christ. So there's 2 different Jesuses here. There's the Jesus, the man, and then Christ, which is our Savior. When Peter was sinking, he wanted the Savior aspect of it. He didn't want Jesus. He wanted our Savior. No matter how we answer that question, there is a deeper problem. We doubt Jesus. We trust our skills, our intellect, our money, our position, or our connections more than we do the Son of God. We only turn to Jesus as a last result. We put Jesus on a time limit. If Christ does not handle our problem within a certain amount of time, we assume that he does not care or not able or is too busy. So we go to someone or something else. Not only must Christ be our first choice, he must become our only choice. I can imagine the question that you may be in your mind, but what if Jesus does not help? Jesus may not come when you want, do what you want, or follow your every direction, but Jesus does care. He is all-powerful and he will help. Notice that the storms do not calm down until Jesus gets into the boat. The whole experience with Peter walking on the water happened while the storm raged. Sometimes Jesus does not remove the problems of life, but he shows up and walks with you through them. That's where trust and faith come in. Our life is built on Jesus and him alone, not Jesus and something else, or Christ and someone else. When we realize that all we need is Jesus, we will trust him. It will not matter if the storm rages or the lightning flashes. All that will matter to us is that we have Jesus. No doubts in his ability, nor questions about if this is the right course for our life. No wondering if Christ can. So I have 2 more questions for you guys. Faith unleashes the supernatural. Peter did not experience the supernatural power of God that allowed him to walk on water until he acted upon his faith. So how are you acting on your faith? And then fear will sink you. When Peter had faith, he walked on water. When he had fear, he sank in the water. The same is true for you. Fear will sink you. Is there any fear that is gripping and controlling your decision making? So I think this is very powerful because we sink when we lose our sight on Jesus. And we can do that in very, very different ways. But as Peter was walking on the water, like it said, he was walking in the rage, but Jesus was walking with him. The storm didn't calm down until Jesus got into the boat. And so that's pretty powerful too, because Jesus may not fix our storms right away. He may need to walk through with us. So I love that section of the Bible. And I just want you guys to remember not to take your eyes off Jesus.